Greetings and salutations, test takers. Welcome to our Tuesday ritual, our live stream where we handle content on all NASA and FINRA series exams. I'm the Series 7 guru, aka Dean Tenney, and we have our always and special VIP guest, Brian Lee, managing member, Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. We will go over your questions as soon as we take care of housekeeping. But tell us what exam you're taking and where you're joining us from. We like to know what series people are taking, where they're joining us from. If you do have a question when we get into content, it's helpful to Brian and I if you tell us what exam you're taking before you tell us what your question is, because there's a lot of overlap on things. How they test on one exam may be different. It's not necessary, but it's helpful if we know we're answering the question in relation to what series exam you're taking. Now, if you're looking for a free supplement, there is no better free supplement than my YouTube channel. We have over 1,700 videos. We have a playlist for all the series exams. I've organized the series, the playlist, the YouTube channel by series playlist. So you find like SIE, and you'll see there's 4 playlists. The playlists are in suggested order, watch order. The videos are in watch order, but it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. Now, if you're looking for a particular content, we know, Brian and I, that we are going to get asked questions tonight that we have asked and answered many times. And they're available in video format, whether it's, for previous live streams or whether I have a lecture on it. And if you have particular things you want to know, go to the channel search bar, put in margin or accrued interest or taxation. You don't want to find a needle in a haystack, 1,700 videos. If you put in margin, boom. That margin content will magically appear. So, if you're looking for a particular topic, use that search bar. Now, if you're looking for a paid supplement, I can't recommend a better paid supplement if you don't already have it than a Kaplan Q-Bank. If you're taking a Series 7, for example, that Kaplan Q-Bank with my 15% discount code at checkout, Guru15, is $55.80, 3,600 questions, a performance tracker. The discount code works for all Kaplan products and services, but I highly recommend if you don't have a Kaplan Q-Bank for whatever series exam you're taking, you consider strongly making that investment. Now, Brian, until he sells a Q-Bank, he doesn't have a Q-Bank available. But what he does have, I think, is the best distillation of testable content. So he's the opposite of 1,700 videos. He has videos for each of the series exams where he's distilled the massive amount of information that test prep vendors provide and Dean provides. And all in on Brian with 20% discount code. It's $100, give or take a few bucks. And you not only get the video course, you also get his class notes, which I think are wonderful. And you get a practice test, which I think has the strongest correlation to your actual exam. So all available for you. Everything on the YouTube channel is free. There's no upsells. I don't sell you coffee cups or hats or any of that kind of stuff. I don't have channel memberships. On my booking page, almost nothing is free. Everything is going to have a cost involved with it. There are a few things that are free on my booking page. One is we do a weekly Q&A jam session, and that's free. Anybody can sign up for that. We have a whiteboard, electrical whiteboard, and we go over, whatever it is people want to talk about. And if you're already a paid student of mine, then you have free office hours that are available. Now, that's important because when we do our drawing tonight, if you win, you do not win a tutoring session at a date and time of your choosing. No. What you win is a coaching call, and you would go to the booking page and go to the class tab. You'll see coaching call. You would register for that. You can see what that's about because I just posted a video replay of our coaching call winner. And she wanted to go over spreads, and so that's what we did. We spent the coaching call going over spreads. You are not alone. Now you got to find your test-taking tribe and join some kind of a tribe. And we actually have several tribes available for you. We have a Facebook community. And our Facebook community is called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. Baby Brokers is the term of endearment for rookies in the securities industry. The hat trick is 3 successes in a limited time frame. And we're there, Brian, 1,300 members. We have chats for all the series, very active. There's usually anywhere from 3 to 7 posts a day. So if you're a Facebook person, You can find us there. We also have communities on Reddit. For the Series 6, we have a subreddit, R Series 6. For SIE and 7, we have R Series 7. For all the NASA exams, 63, 65, 66, we have R Series 66. And for 9s and 10s and 24s, we have the R Series 24. All right. Looks like now we can jump in, Brian, and see what we got going on.
Let's do it.
In chat. Oh, wow. Busy already. Hello, Dean. Thank you for all the work you do. That's greatly appreciated. Well, thank you, Helen. I'll tell you, Brian, as you know, Brian, isn't it an emotionally a payoff when we find people who come into the securities industry, we help them get through this rite of passage, and then we find out how well they're doing. I had somebody who circled back on the YouTube channel, said it's been 6 months since he took his test and got registered, and now he's making a good living, taking care of his clients, taking care of his family, and just such a turn on. It's just so uplifting that we can be there for people. So, Helen, thank you very much for your kind words. Taking the 24 this week, and the cap, I'm scoring 75.81. Okay, that looks good. Practice master 57, not bueno. 75 is bueno, 81 is bueno, 65 is a hell of a lot better than 57. Do you have a chance to pass? You most certainly do.
Absolutely.
You most certainly do, but you have to be confident in the execution of your study plan. You have to be confident in yourself. And most importantly, Ellen, you've got to be confident in the answers on test day. You can't be changing answers. You can't be second guessing yourself. You can't say, what if they meant? They don't. If I were a betting person betting on this with these scores, I would bet you're going to pass. So I think your passing glass is more than half full. I don't like a 57. I would prefer there's not a 65 there. I like the 75.81. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, the simulated exams are far more indicative of what you know. The masteries and practice, I'm sorry, I love Kaplan, but I'm not a big fan of those masteries.
Helen, I would say this on Kaplan, particularly the mastery, the variance, you NASA test takers should know what that word means. The variance is in your favor, Helen. And what I mean by that is we would expect your score on the actual being higher than your Kaplan scores. That variance, when Kaplan could track scores, because when you passed, you used to get a score. You don't anymore. Well, when Kaplan could pass tracking scores versus mastery, the range, another word on NASA exams, was anywhere between 5 and 12 points of improvement from Kaplan mastery scores to the actual exam. So we feel pretty good when Brian and I are not the people who say you need to be getting high 80s and 90s on practice tests. I know there are people out there that do that. We would routinely say we think you're okay if you're in the mid 70s and you know why you're missing questions or getting questions right. In fact, Brian and I have many times, Helen, been suspicious when somebody tells us they're getting 85s and 90s, because what we worry about is they may have memorized questions and answers. So I think you're in pretty good shape, and I would go for it. I would go for it.
I would too. Yep.
Howdy, Jazz. Hi, Dean, taking my Series 7 tomorrow. Well, Gabe, what are you doing here? You should be getting some sleep. I thought my ticker went down, and all of a sudden it's come back. Anyways, can I briefly go over accrued interest? I certainly can. Can I go over accretion? I certainly can. There is no distinction between going over accretion and going over amortization. Gabe, on the Uniform Practice Code, which standardizes trading practices within the securities industry, the buyer of a bond is going to pay the seller of the bond the dollar amount of the accrued interest. So, Gabe, I lent to the Ford Motor Company $100,000. The coupon, the nominal yield, fixed or stated rate of return on that bond was 8%. So I'm going to get a check, assuming Ford doesn't default, on January 1st for $4,000. On July 1st, another check for $4,000. That $4,000 represents the entire 6-month time frame. And let's say I decide to sell the bond. And let's say I sell it to Brian. So I'm selling him the bond on Tuesday, July 22nd. I say, now, Brian, on January 1st, you're going to get a check that represents the entire 6-month time frame. And not all of that $4,000, Brian, belongs to you. Some of that $4,000 belongs to me. And he says, well, Dean, when I get the check, I'll send you your pro rata share. I say, Brian, This is not a relationship. This is a transaction. Why don't we right now just figure out how much of that $4,000 belongs to me? So these were my bonds on today, July 22nd. They're not Brian's bonds until tomorrow. That's settlement. Settlement is when ownership changes hands. Trade date is when we agree to terms. And so we're going to calculate the number of days of accrued interest from the last interest payment date, July 1st, up to but not including settlement date. So here, Brian is going to owe me 22 days of accrued interest. Now, I think it's more of a memory question than a practical application question. However, that being said, when we came up with the Uniform Practice Code, Gabe, we didn't want our high talent men and women to have to remember nursery rhymes and knuckle humps about how many days have September. And so in the Uniform Practice Code, corporates and munis have 30-day months, right? So July has 30, February has 30. Now, if you want to use a shortcut, you can actually just take 7/23, July 23rd settlement, subtract last interest payment date, 7/1, and you would come up with the 22 days. So I have a shortcut. If you put accrued interest, Gabe, into the channel search bar, here we go, you will find literally probably 10 videos of me doing accrued interest calculations, as well as a lecture on accrued interest. So put that in the channel search bar and you can get it. Now, governments are goofy. They use a actual calendar, 365. Anything you want to add to that, Brian, before we move on to accretion?
That's exactly right. Yep.
So same thing on accretion. If you put that into the channel search bar, many videos, Gabe, will show up. But if we buy an original issue discount bond, a zero coupon bond, and let's say I pay $500 for that bond, it has 10 years to maturity. What I'd like to do, Gabe, is claim that the $500 I made was a long-term capital gain because I held the zero coupon bond for more than a year. The IRS says, no, dude. There's an imputed interest you're receiving. And so you're going to have to do straight line amortization upward called accretion. I'm making $500 over 10 years. 500 divided by 10 is I'm going to accrete and claim $50 in interest income that I'm not actually receiving, which kind of sucks, right? Because I'm paying taxes on $50 I didn't actually get. Now, if I hold it to maturity, I'm going to have no gain or loss because of this idea of accretion. But by the way, amortization is just accretion upward, right? So there's no distinction, between the word accretion and amortization. On the test, they use accretion. Yeah, I can either go up, I might have to go down in terms of a muni bond at a premium, but that's what that's about. Brian, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, there's a lot, but probably too much for this.
Yeah, with our live stream. So, feel free to join us on the Q&A jam session, Gabe. I'm more than happy to work some examples like Brian's doing on your board for you. Make sure you put both of those in the channel search bar, and many videos will come up where you can watch me and a student, going through this stuff.
I just went over this with a tutor student yesterday for Series 7. Mm-hmm. It's a concept that a lot of people ask about.
Would you go this far, Brian? Would you go this far? I think it's low probability to have to deal with this, but it's there. I think would you consider this, Brian, to be one of those more of a test prep vendor issue than a test issue, or not?
Yes. There's probably one, maybe two questions on the real test about amortization. Yeah.
What I usually say, Gabe, here, and let's see if Brian agrees with this. Brian, would you agree with this? That if Gabe misses his mark tomorrow, is it because he couldn't do accrued interest?
No.
Don't come back and tell your manager that you missed the mark because of accrued interest. You're gonna have bigger problems, right? I don't want to send out negative vibes, but it's not gonna be accrued interest that does you. Taking 7 Thursday. Wow, we got some test takers here. We got Gabe tomorrow. Hey, the testing gods have been smiling favorably upon us. We've had lots of good testing victories here lately. So a good time to test for sure. Well, thank you so much, Brad. Thank you. Hey, Dean and Brian, I passed the 7 on Friday. Woo! So, Noah, as you know, we ring the bell for whom the bell tolls. That's not for whom the bell tolls, victorious test takers. And if you want to play the drinking game with us, we also toast successful test takers.
Oh, here we go.
Tonight, our victory toast is Lagavulin. Wow. It's a single malt scotch from the island of Isla. Very smoky, very peaty. And so our victory toast to Noah.
Wow.
Our bell and our toast.
Thank you.
By the way, if you want to join us, get your beverage of choice. I would suggest, Brian, you do this because we got to have at least one of us who's, prepared to carry the ball if something happens.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like my glass. My student got me, Brian. We started this about 3 weeks ago, Noah. It's taking on a life of its own. Somebody told me we should call this Tipsy Tuesday instead of Ask the Series 7 Guru. But this was a gift. Brian says, that's what I do. I drink and I know things, which is the character in Game of Thrones. Wow, it looks like a 7 night. We got all kinds of 7s here today, right? Mackenzie, when are you taking your 7? When are you taking your 7? Twice. Okay. Well, Liz, we don't wish a hard journey, test-taking journey on people. But I can tell you that a lot of very successful people in our business have struggled in their testing journey. And Brian, isn't it neat to see how people respond to this misfortune and how they do finally go into that cave? They do slay that Series 7 dragon and now they're in our business making a good living. Any recommendations for this third try? I love the 61 went to 70. Yeah. So I think we should be helpful that with the additional dedication, the additional discipline, and the additional organization that you brought to the third effort, I can't imagine you're going to miss this the third time. But we do want to overlearn so that we can take down any draw we receive. Liz, I am wishing for you a dream draw. Everything is, studied, shows up, and you go, man, what happened the first 2 times? So that would be my recommendation, just to continue to do what you did from the first to the second score and double down on it, do more of it. And any recommendations you, Brian, have? Liz, one more point before I turn over to Brian.
Of course,
the FINRA content outline. Go through that and see if there's things there that you still are fuzzy about. Brian, your thoughts?
Score printout, the score sheet.
Yeah.
Find out which topic area was your weakest.
Yeah, that score sheet, Liz, that you get, unfortunately got it twice. That score sheet matches up perfectly with the FINRA content outline. It will actually tell you in the sections you missed what is included in that section, right? That thing that says below average. And people struggle is with below average doesn't mean the same thing in every function. So how many times, Brian, have we got somebody who says, oh, this did me in below average in function 1? I go, yeah, it's 12 questions. You got below average in function 3, that's 91 questions, right? So started reading the 66, and I'm already confused. Any advice how to go about this? Yes. Brian and I did an entire podcast series on the 66. So Noah, one of the things is OGs that we want people to do is to read the book cover to cover. But as OGs, we know that a lot of people maybe aren't going to do that. It hurts our heart that they don't get the lay of the land, not taking notes, not trying to understand anything, just seeing what's between the covers. And a lot of times, Noah, we get asked, what book should I read? Well, whatever book you signed up for, STC, Kaplan, whatever. Now, Brian and I thought, well, what can we do to help people do some reconnaissance, kind of see what this whole thing looks like? And so we did a podcast series, Test Geek and Guru. I think we did 4 episodes or 5, Brian?
For the 66, I think it was 5. Yeah.
And it's available not only on the YouTube channel, it's also available on Spotify. And that's what I would recommend you start with. It's just sit down, watch that entire podcast series and get the lay of the land, so to speak. Then circle back and start, going through the chapters, the units, whatever they call your printers calling them, doing your quizzes. Brian and I believe in being kind of a methodical of working your way through any of these exams. By, reading Unit 1, for example, watch a video to dent the reading before you do it or after to consolidate the reading. Then doing Unit 1 practice quiz, 25, 30 questions, get your score, right? Inch by inch. Don't try and master the 66 in one fell swoop. Unit 2, read, rinse and repeat, watch a video before or after, dent it before you read it, or, afterwards consolidate, do a practice quiz. Now, here's where you got to be careful. You should not move on to Unit 3. We want you to be getting 70% plus on those units. Now, Brian's recommendation would be a combined quiz of Unit 1 and 2 before you move on to Unit 3. So that's how we would recommend you move your way through any of these series exams. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I wrote that blog on describing that exact method.
Yeah, Brian,
For
You have a
both the
video or just your
65
blog?
I'm sorry.
Is that blog on your webpage?
No, I email it out to anybody
Okay,
or
so Noah,
suggestions.
or no, I'm sorry, we're not at Noah, but yeah, Noah. But
No.
be careful. I think you're still working on your 7, as I recall. So be a little careful about, jumping ahead too far. But if Brian, if you send him an email, Brian at testgeekexamprep.com, who knows? He might be kind enough to send you a PDF of his little recommendation on state plan.
Start with those podcasts, both 65 and 66.
Yeah, we have 2 great podcasts. Absolutely.
They're really good. Yep.
All right. Whoop. Comments. Where's our comments? And where are we at? There we go. Definitions of registrations within the playlist, and that's another very helpful video. So, as I said, it's a buffet, but in the 66 playlist, Brian has a very popular class he did for us, and it's in the playlist, and lots of people find that so helpful. I have a video that people find helpful called the Mighty 90 on the Uniform Securities Act. That's kind of helpful. So if you want to cherry pick some videos, there are some great videos to cherry pick. I do think that definition and registration video that Brian did for us is fantastic.
And the cheat sheet with that too.
Cheat sheet. If you're nice, maybe he'll give you the cheat sheet too.
I probably email that 10 times a day.
I don't like that Brian calls it a cheat sheet, Noah, because I'm afraid somebody's going to take it to the exam and accidentally leave it laying around and it says cheat sheet. But he has a really great thing. And, what they say, copycats are the best form of flattery, people who copy. And Brian's had some people that have literally just plagiarized his cheat sheet. And oh well. But you can get the original from the original by sending Brian an email.
Why did you want to pick that scab, man?
Because that's how,
I've been trying to get that past me.
Everybody should know I am a Marine. My father is a missionary, and he believes in turning the other cheek and taking the high road. I am not a missionary. I'm a mercenary. I'm a Marine, and I return fire. so he takes a shot at me. Oh, and Brian has a good point. Even if they take a shot at Brian, I'm going to fire back on Brian's behalf. All right. Woohoo!
Nice.
Investment advisor representative in the house. Lagavulin. Ooh. Oh.
That 65 is such an accomplishment. Getting that thing
It is.
Really is.
It is. As you know, victorious test taker in the house. Yeah. Brian, how many people are incredulous with us when we tell people that we think for a certain set of people that can be the most challenging exam?
Really
I get this with 7s all the time. What do you mean? I say, well, the 65 has no narrative thread to it. It's just all over the place. Yeah. Whereas the 7 makes a certain sense. So we really think that 65, all testing victories are accomplishments. But boy, 65 series 10s, there's some things that are just a real slog. That 24, these things are slogs. Kara, thank you so much. Kara's in my current Guru Exam Prep Kaplan collab class. We do a collaboration class, Brian, and Kara is one of our students in there. Remember, Kara, whether you are a paid student on my YouTube channel or whether you're a paid student at Kaplan, you're entitled to the free office hours. There's a free office hour for paid students coming up. I think it's Thursday or something. So go to the booking page and you're welcome to join us for that. And hopefully tomorrow we'll finish up our 3-day journey through the 66. Series 65, joining from Arkansas. All right. Any tips? So victorious test takers in the house. No, that's part of what the live streams are about. And we really love when people come back and share their testing victorious with us, because it's really a morale boost for test takers, right? You're not alone. So part of this is fun and fellowship. Now, I don't know why, Noah, you wouldn't take Brian or my words about what's on the 65, but we get it. If you can find somebody to give you confirmation of those test issues, go for it. Now, remember, every draw is a little different, so be careful. I like that you didn't ask about particular questions. You said tips or insights. So well-framed, Noah, question, well-framed question. So if you're still here, Victorious Investment Advisor Rep, Leah, you could give him some pointers. That'd be great. Another Dean. Hi, Dean and Breen. It fell short. That hurts. Digging in. What do you recommend for my study plan second try? So, Dean, I have a podcast episode called You Failed. Is It Over? Spoiler alert. The answer is no. I will link that in the video description for you. It has my 5 recommendations on how to respond to missing your mark. The first recommendation I'll share with you now. While the hurt is fresh, I want you to go get the Series 7 content outline off the FINRA website. And I want you to do an intellectual inventory debrief with yourself. I want you to go through each of those topics, matches up with your printout, and put plus, minus, or 0. Plus means, yeah, I got that one. I remember I got a question on that. I'm okay on that. 0 means you're at par, passing. Counterintuitive, minus would mean you look at that and go, oh man, I should have known that. I didn't. Counterintuitive, we want to have lots of minuses because that now knows we know where we need to spend time remediating. And what we want to do is bring all those minuses to above par, pluses, all the pars above par, and then everything is above par. You still got to review so it doesn't drop. And then you'll be over learning, and that will drag you across that finish line. So that would be my first recommendation. I have 4 more, and you can find that in the video that I will link. Brian, your thoughts on that?
That's it, man. Get that score sheet. That's it.
Right on. By the way, we're dating ourselves, Dean. Brian and I go way, way, way back. Shh. You know, we were in the business, Dean, when there was no 30-day wait period. And what I used to say to somebody like you, Dean, before there was a 30-day wait period, I would literally tell you just queue it up again.
Yep. And
stay down there until you got a draw you could pass. Unfortunately, now we make you go home, think about it. 7, man, we got so many 7s going on. Take a 7 Thursday. I have both STC Kaplan scoring. No worries. I would recommend final day and night. The execution of your study plan, Jake, is done on Thursday, early afternoon. You're done. Oh, you're taking on Thursday. My bad. Wednesday. So tomorrow, you're done. So what's most important is your psyche on Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday night. You've got to make sure you get a good night's sleep. I don't know about you, Jake, but when I'm not well rested, my reading skills are greatly diminished. And so you want to make sure you get a good night rest. That is the most important thing the night before your exam, is to get a good night rest. Don't do anything the day before or afternoon before. Don't try and learn new things. Don't go down any rabbit holes. If you're going to do anything, you just want to do some low-key stuff to keep your rhythm. You don't want to lose your rhythm the day before, but that would be my recommendation. Brian, your thoughts on that?
Review notes, review past exams. That's especially with those scores. My goodness, you should have took the test last week.
I'm with you, Jake. I'm with Brian on that. So we think you're going to stick the landing with those scores. So we don't think you're a risk in any way. So our recommendations are just to help you, feel better about what is going to be ultimately a pass. And so just make sure you get a good night's rest and don't wear yourself out, right? Make sure you're not, burnout is real, and you can, you run out of fuel before you stick the landing, right? So Brian and I are kind of thinking that Jake is circling the airport, and we wish that air traffic control would have said, Jake, we got a runway for you. Come on in. So we just want to make sure you don't run out of fuel before you stick the landing. Tomorrow, wow, we got so many Series 7s and going on crazy.
88 on pass.
88 on pass, perfect. Can I ring the victory bell? I will do it early for you.
Wow.
I'll ring it early because you feel confident. You should feel confident. 88 on that. And I'll tell you what, we're going to be fair too, Jake. We don't usually ring the bell in advance of testing victories because we don't want to have the testing gods strike us down for hubris. But I think both of you are in good shape. I think we're going to get 2 testing victories.
Does that mean you're going to take two drinks?
What's that?
Are you going to take 2 drinks?
No, I took one.
Okay.
Any debts here? You must know. Absolutely. So, Brad, that's
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what to say to this.
Any
so,
bond
Brad,
question?
on your SIE, you are held accountable for 3 issuers of debt securities. You're held accountable on your SIE for corporate issuers of debt securities, and corporations issued secured debt and unsecured debt, and you should know all of those. Municipalities issue GOs and revenues, and you should know the distinctions between GOs and revenues. And the U.S. Treasury issues T-bills, T-notes, and T-bonds, And there are government agencies. The big one on your test in the SIE is Ginnie Mae. And so, that is a large, large topic for your, kind of question. So, if there were truth in labeling, Brett, the Series 7 for, a long time has been referred to as the stockbroker's exam. And Brian, I always thought that was not truth in labeling because I thought it really should be called the bond broker's exam because there's way more questions on Series 7 about bonds than there is stocks. And on the SIE, yes. I mean, I can't imagine any draw, Brad, of your SIE in which you don't, there's not a particular security they're going to have to focus on. You should know all of those debt securities, all those issuers, right? 33 questions on the SIE are products. And of those 33 questions on products, there's a lot of them about bonds, mutual funds. I wouldn't worry about options on the SIE. It's mainly recognition. But I would certainly worry about knowing bonds and knowing mutual funds on the SIE. Brian, your thought on that?
Absolutely. Bonds, all the investment products. The exams, all of them go through almost every major type of investment product, including bond, because there's 3 different types: the corporates, the munis, and the govies. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Leandra, thank you for all the materials you provide. I'm studying for the SIE in Series 6 in Colorado Springs. All right. Great. Colorado's a great state. I love going to Colorado. I used to fly there all the time, and Schwab has a big campus out in Lone Tree, and taught there many times. And USAA has a big operation out there, and I taught classes there. I like that state. A lot of good stuff going on in Colorado. Where do you get involved in the jam session? You go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. You go to the class tab and you'll see jam session, and you're welcome to join us on that, Jazz. Like I say, we just, it's kind of a free form thing. We get the whiteboard out and we knock out people's questions. 6 on Friday, a little nervous. Yeah, well, you got to manage the nervousness. Hopefully you feel confident. You've got some practice scores that reflect success. I don't know how you felt about your SIE. Hopefully you, paid the down payment and are going to get dividends from your SIE, because there's a lot of overlap on the 6 from the SIE. In fact, I think if you execute a good study plan effort on the SIE, you could almost pass out of a Series 6. So I think you're pretty good shape based on your SIE testing pattern. Wow, we got kind of an interesting mix tonight. We have 7s and SIEs and 6s, and where you go. Kudos. Oh, Angel. You were talking with Dana about which practice exams you like. Well, I didn't say practice exams. I said practice exams. So, when we're doing practice exams, Jazz, we're trying to get an intellectual inventory or marker where we're at. And what I was talking about, Jazz, is variance in practice tests. Can you rely on a practice test score in relationship to your actual test? And I said there are some exams that have variance. Good news, Kaplan, for example. I said their practice tests have variance in your favor. You should do well. Some practice exams have variance, I think, in a bad way. It's, not in your favor, and it doesn't reflect that. And then the comment I made is I said I like Brian's practice tests because my experience has been that they're most accurate reflection correlation, meaning there isn't a lot of variance. I tell this story a lot, Jazz, about Brian's Test Geek practice test. I had somebody who was very, very frustrated with Kaplan. She was working hard. She wasn't getting the scores she felt she deserved doing the work. And I was trying to encourage her to stick with it. And just, you got to do it inch by inch. So, you get a 62, then 64. You got to just keep working. Anyways, she then went and got another test prep vendor and did their practice test. And she was so excited because the first score came in at an 82. And so she's thinking, well, gee, Kaplan's all wet. How come Kaplan's 62? And now I got an 85. I said, well, please do me a favor. I said, I'm not sure we should rely upon that 82. Let's get another data point. Now, remember, Brian only has one practice test, so that's one data point. But I think it's an accurate data point. And she took the Test Geek practice test, got a 65. And then she took the test, and guess what she got? a 65. Now, I'm not saying that people get 65s on Brian's practice test and don't pass. They do. I'm just saying it's an accurate reflection, I think, of where you can think. Brian, I have to talk people off the ledge when they get a 73 on your practice test. I go, well, that's good. 73 is passing. Well, it's Brian's practice test. Well, as I said, well, it's a good thing, not a bad thing. I said masteries are harder. That's what I said. I don't recommend exams. Now, today, Brian, I had somebody, this comes up. Jazz, on my channel, I am not monogamous about content. And so for every exam, I have a playlist of practice tests from everybody. Brian's given me permission to put his up there. I have STC. I have Kaplan. I have Notman up there. And so if you're looking for another data point or run out of practice questions, you can check out that playlist. Hit pause. Tell me what you think your answer is. Hit play. See what the answer is. Now, I have versions where you can watch me do it. I have versions where you can watch me do it with a student who does a shared screen practice test and gives me permission to put it up for everybody. Please don't complain about other test takers on my YouTube channel doing practice tests. I had a guy who had some derogatory things to say about this test taker, and I said, listen, you should be focused on your own testing journey, not worried about that person. That person passed. And then he was complaining that he's listening in the gym and that we should do a better job together, her and I, going through the practice test. Like, listen, my friend, she's doing you the favor. She paid $900 to do that practice exam with me, and she was kind enough to let us share it on the channel. So listen, unless you're going to talk about your own testing journey, I don't want to hear from you. Right? So I recommend my favorite test prep vendor is Kaplan, their QBank, because it has many more questions. It has a performance tracker. It's going to be difficult for you to memorize questions and answers. I think STT's QBank is pretty good. Past perfects is very difficult. We had somebody earlier who got a past perfect score. The Brian, I were, wow. Brian, I don't even think I could get an 88 on a past perfect practice test. So that's what we were saying, Jazz. So there's a review of what we said. All right, super chat. Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you so much. Greetings, the Geek and Guru. Currently using Brian's test exam supplement with my firm provided STC. Would you go through Dean's 66 playlist in order to be recommended as well? So I don't know. As I said, my playlists are not, they're buffet. So I have more than you need. And I don't have the expectation somebody's watched 1,700 videos. But I do have those playlists. I would think that the two biggest 66 playlists I would want you to pay attention to are the podcast playlist, and then maybe check out some of those practice tests. But Brian, I told you, is trying to do distillation. So you don't need anything outside of Brian's paid supplement paired with your STC. STC, Brian's paid supplement, is sufficient. But if you want to, it's a buffet and you want some more, my YouTube channel is available.
Sure.
What do you think, Brian? I mean, it's your content.
Absolutely. I have no problem with that. I like the exam review that you do. Absolutely. Yeah.
Darth Brew, have life and health tomorrow. I know nothing about life and health, so I cannot be helpful. Serious. I do say Darth as a joke that life insurance agents sell fear, life and health insurance agents. Wouldn't life be terrible if you died, or wouldn't life be terrible if you lost your health? And stockbrokers, Darth, we sell greed. Wouldn't life be wonderful if you had more money? I joke, Darth, sounds like you're going to be duly registered, so you'll be able to sell both fear and greed. I've finally been an advisor, past 60. There you go. Until you take the 7. Eventually, you're going to need a 7, but that'll get you going, right? Start making some money. Absolutely. Past the 63. All right. Woo! Super easy to understand content. Well, that's what we hope.
That's what we do.
Hope that as you are with us for your reason and your season. Your reason to be with Brian and I is to pass your exams. The season is how long that takes. And we hope that through that season, that this stuff sounds less and less of a foreign language, rather than more and more. So that's our aspiration. And so I'm glad to hear that, because that's what we aspire to do. Achieve these victories. All right. Yeah, you got a lot of testing victories. I think, Darth, I already rang the bell for you and took a toast. Did I not?
Darth, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
He's been through 3. He's passed 3 of them. So.
I'm playing next Friday. All right. I love it. Love it, Mackenzie. Did you tell us any practice test scores? What do we got? Do we got any more data for your Friday victory? Can I go over stock and an option position?
That's called a hedge, by the way.
Yeah, well, I can't. So I'm going to start big here. And then I'm going to warn you again that if you go to my channel and you put in the search bar stock plus options or hedge or protected puts or covered calls, it'll come up. Now, you didn't tell us what exam you're taking. And so this discussion would not be, I think, important if you're taking NASAA. If you're taking a 7, perhaps a 65, you might encounter a hedge. A hedge is a fence. It keeps good things in and bad things out. Right? That's what a hedge does. It's a fence. And so when you have a stock position, the one that gets tested most often is having a long stock position. I own the stock. But remember, we also have short stock positions. And there's 2 things I might want to do using an option. I'm always interested. Uh-oh, looks like I just disappeared. Did I come back?
Yeah, you're back. Yep.
That's not bueno. Anyways, I'm either trying to protect the stock position or I'm trying to generate additional income. So, Brian, could you please put a stock price on the 100 shares of XYZ on your whiteboard? And I'm going to 50. So what I say is, hey, Brian, how would you like to agree to sell at 55 stock you just bought at 50? Somebody will give you several $100s, Brian, to agree to sell at 55 stock you just bought at 50. Right now, Brian, we could write or short or sell an XYZ 55 call at 3. And this is a very good way, test question, to generate additional income. And that's very much a test question. Why are we using this strategy? This is the most conservative option strategy available. And this is like level 1 approval at most firms. I say, Brian, we now have 3 sources of profit. One source of profit, Brian, is we now have 50 to 55. That's $500 we could make. We get to keep the 300. That's another source of profit. And if this company pays dividends, we get to keep that as well. So, Brian, this is a good way to supplement dividend income. We also get some price decline protection. We're going to lower our out-of-pocket cost from 50 to 47, right? Because we paid out 50 and we brought in 3. Right? So that we're going to net those 2 numbers. Now, there is a disadvantage to this strategy. The disadvantage to this strategy is we don't participate past the strike. Now, if this stock goes to 80, Brian, we got to give it up at 55. So there's a cap. Our gain is capped. If we didn't write the call, we have unlimited gain potential. So, but, if we get called away at 55, that's really the equivalent of 58. So anywhere between 47 and 58 winning recommendation. All right, so that's the most testable of the stock plus the options.
One last thing.
Yep.
This, with that, is the famous covered call.
Yeah, covered because if you agree to sell stock you don't have, that's called a naked uncovered call, and that's not bueno, right? If Brian just sells a 55 call at 3, that's like picking up nickels in front of bulldozers. I mean, I say, Brian, really? For $300, you're going to step out in the middle of a bulldozer? I mean, that's just stupid, right? So covered calls, a very conservative strategy. Naked calls, uncovered, where you're agreeing to sell stock you don't have, has unlimited risk. All right, so what's the next one? So, we talked about insurance. I say, hey, Brian, we might want to consider buying some insurance. As you know, Brian, when you buy insurance, you got to pay a premium. And so what I'd like to do is take some more money and buy some protection. I'd say, Brian, why don't we buy an XYZ 45 put at 2? Let's establish to sell the stock we bought at 50 at 45. And that's going to cost us 2 points for the protection. This is called a married put, protective put. It's protecting the stock position. Brian, how many times do people tell us, oh, the break-even's 43, strike price minus premium, max loss is $200, maximum gain is break-even to 0? Whenever you have stock and options, the stock position dominates. You cannot let an option tail wag a stock dog. So you got to stay focused on the stock. So when you're taking the test, the first thing you got to do is RTFQ, read the full question and say, this is a stock position. So no matter what option comes next, it's still a stock position. So this is a bullish transaction. It has unlimited gain potential. The maximum loss is when my protection kicks in. So if the stock goes to 35, I can sell it at 45. So the worst case is we're going to lose 7 points. So I think in this format as a live stream, I did a pretty good job of going over that. And so did Brian. Kudos on the whiteboard. Brian's sure helpful in this kind of a situation. But again, if you put that into the channel search bar, I have an entire option playlist. I have hours of videos on stock plus options, and you can watch me do it. You can watch students do it. So lots of content available for you. Brian, any comments on that before we move on?
Yeah, and I'm commenting right now as quickly as I possibly can. So buying the put or selling the call, these two are the only two, depending protect or income. These are the only two you would ever use with a long stock.
Yeah, the way I said that, Brian, is offset, right? If you bought the stock, you want to sell it. So you either want to have an obligation to sell for income, the stock you own, or a choice to sell. And that would be the opposite for the short stock position.
So that's just an easy way to remember which.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Good. He has a hybrid of what I call the options matrix.
Yes, I do.
Let's see. I was not able to make the mark on the 66. Damn. Any tips or tricks? Riley, I will link in the video description to my podcast episode. You failed. Is it over? Spoiler alert. It's not. It has 5 recommendations about how to respond to that misfortune. And the first we've gone over early in the this live stream, and we'll do it again. While the herd is fresh, you need to go get the test specifications published by NASA. You need to use it to do an intellectual debrief with yourself and go match that up to your printout and see where are the areas you need to remediate for your next attempt. So that would be our first recommendation. What are the most important concepts on options on Series 7? Well, strategy, max gain, max loss, break even, right? You're held accountable, Brennan, for 9 option strategies on the test. You're held accountable for 9 option strategies on the test. You're held accountable for 4 basic option strategies. Long call. Again, why do you buy a long call? You're bullish on the stock. Max gain, max loss, break even. Short call. Long put, short put. 4 basic. You're held accountable for a covered call. Of the 9 you're held accountable for on the test, the vast majority are going to be basic option positions and covered calls. You're also held accountable for advanced option strategies. The advanced option strategies you're held accountable for are spreads and straddles. On spreads, there's 8 test questions on spreads. You can watch Charlene and I just did a coaching call with her, but you could put spread into the channel search bar and literally hours of content will come up. Or you can put straddles in the search bar. Those are a little more straightforward. And then the other ones you're held accountable for are the other hedges, right? I already told you about covered call, but how to protect a long stock position, how to protect a short stock position, right? So those are those. Hope that's helpful. But again, we have all kinds of content in the channel. Brian, your thoughts on that? I think it's a pretty broad question. We can be more helpful, Brandon, when we get narrower questions.
That is a pretty broad question. And just like Dean said, if you narrow it down, right, we basically have 4 option strategies, and then within them, we have the break-evens, the gains, the losses.
Yeah, Brennan, I think such a great nugget there, Brian, that Brian just dropped. Such a great nugget. So I think of it this way, Brennan. I've read that Domino's claims to have 16 million different pizzas. Really? Now, I get what they're saying is that there are 16 million different combinations. But we agree that every pizza's got to have some tomato sauce. It's got to have some cheese. And what I say, Brennan, is even if it wasn't a test question to identify an option strategy or concept, it is. But even if it wasn't, I just told you it is. If you can't identify what you're looking at, you're just going to be looking at going, I don't know, B. And so you got to be able to identify that position. And as Brian said, and that's his nugget, I think people never dig in because they just get overwhelmed. And what Brian, I guess, I'm going to paraphrase what I think Brian's trying to say, and I'm going to give my shot, is if you realize that there's only 2 types of contracts, calls and puts, and you can either buy them or sell them, then that means every option pizza is really a combination of those 4, right? Like straddle would be, different options, same action, Spread would be same option, different action. So that identification is really key. So what a nugget. That was a good nugget there, Brian. I've been studying every day, all day long. Now, Mackenzie, I'm a little worried about that because remember, we said we don't want you burning yourself out before you get there. And it's impossible to study every day, all day long. Mackenzie, I'm assuming you're a full-time studier. And so what I would suggest, Mackenzie, is let's call a full day 4 90-minute study blocks. So 4 90-minute study blocks. So I say, Mackenzie, when are we going to start this study day? And you say, Dean, I'm going to start my study day at 8. I say, okay, so our first study block, Mackenzie, is going to be 8 to 9:30. I say, what, Mackenzie, are you going to do in that study block? Are you going to read? Are you going to watch a video? Are you going to do some practice questions? And whatever you're doing in that study block, if we go to our next one, I would change the activity. So if you read in study block 1, now you must take 30-minute break, Mackenzie, after 9:30. You're not going to do your second study block until 10. You got to give yourself time to refresh, reset. Next study block, 10 o'clock, we go to 11:30. And again, we're rotating activity and rotate subject area. So you did options. Now we're going to second study block. Maybe we do munis. 11:30, lunchtime, maybe not lunchtime. 30 minutes, hour, you have to take at least 30. You come back. Now let's say you take lunch, 12:30. Next study block, 12:30 to 2 o'clock. And we take another 30-minute break, 2:30 to 4, and that's our study day. That's an 8-hour day. That's 6 hours of study. And I think that's the max that any one brain can handle when it comes to FINRA and NASA exams. If you told me, Dean, I'm going home and I'm doing 2 more study blocks, I'm going to say, please don't, because we want to have reliable scores. And the other thing happens, Mackenzie, is people will tell me they did a practice exam at like 7 o'clock at night, and it's the third one they did that day. And then the score is not reliable. So the other thing I would add, Mackenzie, is no more than 1 practice test a day, because you should spend as much time on remediation as you actually did on the exam. So that would be my thing. So I think you're going to be fine based on what we already have heard from you. But again, right before I solely watching videos, well, be careful, Mackenzie. Whether it's STC's videos or Brian's videos or my videos, videos are a supplement. They are a supplement. They are not a substitute for reading the book, going to class, doing other things, right? So every once in a while, Brian, particularly on the SIE, somebody will say, they just use my videos. I'm like, well, I'm glad you passed, but, that was not a smart choice.
And Dean, I have to add, you cannot underestimate what Dean just said. That structured study program is absolutely invaluable. Break it up, 90 minutes. You cannot stand there or sit there for 8 hours trying to incorporate all of this gobbledygook. Structure it. Do it in a structured, planned manner. 90-minute study blocks are perfect, and change up those study blocks. Just like he said, reading, videos, practice questions, practice final, whatever.
Change activity. If you change activity, you'll stay fresher longer. I call it changing the chin. Right? Change it out. But one more point, Mackenzie. All Brian and I can do is share with you best practices that we know from helping tens of thousands of people make their mark over decades. And so it does hurt my heart, Brian, when people don't listen to best practice. This person in social media said, totally get time constraints. But she said that she was going to be using her smartphone to study in any 5 or 10 minutes she can find. And I said, okay, well, I hate to rain on your parade, but that is such a bad idea.
That's not
your point, Brian. I said, you need to carve out 30 minutes, maybe not 90, maybe 30. And you need to be in an area where you're not distracted by other things. And then she said, hey, none of your business. I'm paraphrasing, but basically it is what it is. I said, I understood, but I just don't think you're putting yourself in a position to succeed. I told you this story, Brian, about a guy who was tutoring on his 24. And I said, listen, you got to get rid of the distractions. And he got mad at me, Mackenzie. He goes, Dean, my wife and kids are not a distraction. I go, I get it. They're an asset. I'm not saying they're a liability. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you can't tell me that you studied the 24, 15 minutes on the subway, which is what he told me, 30 minutes at lunch, and an hour when he got home. I said, that's just not going to work. And, you're a bright guy, but you're not going to be able to pick up this stuff by osmosis. You got to put in the work.
That's right.
And so hey, as we say, you don't have to listen to us. We'll see you for the next time. You have to retest. Joking, but Erica, welcome. Good to hear from you again. Kara, in a donor advised fund. Kara, I'm glad you have a 66. This is on the 66.5 as well. So, let's say that Dean has $1 million in appreciated stock, and I'm considering making a charity donation of that stock. It would be silly for Dean to sell the stock, pay the capital gains, and then give the proceeds to my favorite 501c, Save the Tiger Fund. The Save the Tiger Fund is a 501c, and they take donations to go, save tigers. We don't have as many tigers in the wild as that guys like Dean would like to have. Anyways, that's not a good way to do it. The other thing I could do, Kara, is I could sign over that stock to the Save the Tiger Fund, and I get the $1 million deduction. They sell the stock. They're a charity. They don't pay any taxes, and the tigers end up with more money. Okay, now here's an even better way to do this. Companies like Fidelity and Schwab and Vanguard have what are called donor advised funds. These are 501c charities where they have a portfolio that is being actively managed. So now I, as a donor, give the $1 million to the Fidelity Gift Fund, a donor advised fund. And then I direct Fidelity where to send the proceeds to. And so I say, hey, send of the million, send 200,000 to Save the Tigers, send another $200,000 to Save the Jaguars. I'm into big cats, basically. Right. So must you donate to 2 or more charities? No. But this gives you more flexibility. I was reading where Bezos' ex-wife, Mackenzie, was using a donor advised fund for $8 billion worth of Amazon stock. And what she did was give it to the donor advised fund. I think it was Schwab. And, woo! She could have set up a family office, but she just thought that was easier, right? Than, having somebody. So now Schwab is going to manage that for her, right? Also, why retain the advisory privilege? I'm not sure what you mean by the advisory privilege. It's the advisor to the fund. Fidelity Management and Research is the investment advisor to the donor advised fund called the Fidelity Gift Fund. That's not a privilege they have. It's an investment advisory contract like any other investment advisory contract. If doing so disallows the deduction. Well, yeah, you could lose the deduction, but that was the whole point of the donor advised fund. You're not going to lose the deduction, right? So you're not advising the fund, the investment advisors. This is on the test, and the test question is about the efficiency of using a donor advised fund in donating the appreciated securities versus donating the appreciated securities directly to whatever your charity of choice is. Right. In my McKinsey example, I don't know if you recall that, Brian, that they were people getting anonymous checks for $2-3 million from the Schwab Gift Fund. And, people would say, who is this? And Schwab would say, well, we can't tell you who it is. This is a donor advised fund, and one of our persons would like you to get some money. Woohoo! Meanwhile, the money is advised. In Silicon Valley, right, you can put money into the donor advised fund, but it's usually appreciated securities. There's a Silicon Valley gift fund that a lot of the tech guys donate meta stock to, and other appreciated stock. Brian, do you have any thoughts on donor advised funds as a test question?
You're right. There's one. No, I don't.
Which of your podcasts would you recommend, Jazz? All of them. All of them. They're all very important and very special. I don't know what to do. I mean, it's like asking my father what's his favorite kid, right? So you're taking a 7. I've said it over and over again. I'll say it for the umpteenth time. My channel is organized in series playlists. In the Series 7, Jazz, there are, I think, 9 Series 7 playlists. Those playlists are in suggested watch order. In fact, the first playlist says, Jazz, start here. And it says playlist 1 of 9. The videos in that playlist, Jazz, are in suggested watch order. But it's a buffet. You can look at the videos and say, I don't need that one. I don't want that one. Once you finish playlist 1, I have another playlist. It's called playlist 2, and it says playlist 2 of 9. Right? So that's how you would find what videos you want to watch. If you want to cherry pick, I don't think I would use it as a popularity contest, but you can also, in my tab, find popular videos, and maybe you want to start there, and you'll find I have some series videos that have 200,000 views, and obviously people like them, or they wouldn't have 200,000 views. I have some, Jazz, I think are awesome that have like 50 views. I'm like, why does nobody love that video? That's such a great video. So. 66 this Friday, Bob Brian's course. Thank you very much. 85 on Brian. You're in good shape. Remember, Brian's, I think that's a pass. High 70s, low 80s on pass perfect. Any advice? Rinse and repeat. Guard your chi, stick the landing. As we said, Michael, you just need to stick the landing. You're circling the airport, and you just got to stick that landing.
Time to come in. Yep.
Start at 65 today, planning 5 hours of study time. Remember, blocks. Don't start at 9 and go to 2. So if you're doing 5 hours, I'd say, how about we do hour and a half study blocks? I would probably want you to take that down to 4 or take it up to 6 so you can have an even number for your study blocks. Can you go over some stuff on 6, please? No. What kind of question is that? Can I go over, sign up for a tutoring session? I'm joking. We need, as we said, we can be more helpful if you tell us what it is that you would like to discuss. This is not an open forum like, can you teach me a Series 6 in 10 minutes? I would tell you on Series 6, Javier, that you should make sure you review retail communications, customer accounts, and variable annuities. So those are all target-rich environments. Brian, any thoughts on the 6?
Yeah, and let's reiterate what we've already said. We're going to assume he just passed the SIE.
Yeah.
A lot of that does carry over. Get the Kaplan Q Bank. Reinforce some of the additional information as well. Get the video, get my video, get the textbook. I'll tell you exactly what's on the Series 6.
Can I go with the difference between an originally issued at a discount bond? That means you bought it in the primary market at a discount. Secondary discount means interest rates went up, the bond went down, and you were able to get it for less than par, and you're hoping to make up that in the yield to maturity. Right. And as we said, in OIDs, you have to do straight line amortization. Now, if an OID, that's part of your imputed interest income, and because it's a muni, that accreted amount, that imputed interest is not taxable. Now, if you buy it in the secondary market at a discount, you can elect how to do that. Most of us would choose to, amortize it upward and pay the taxes a little bitty hits, but you can do it any way you want. Brian, looks like Brian got out his whiteboard. Let's go.
Just real quick. Yeah, just a quick couple notes, just kind of reiterating what you just said. Yeah. The OID, as the acronym implies, is a brand new bond. It's coming straight from the municipality, and it's issued originally below par value. Right? A bond that's trading in the secondary market is kind of just what it says. It was issued some time ago. It could be 5 years old, 10 years old, and is trading already in the over-the-counter market. So you either buy it in the secondary market on the over-the-counter market, or you buy it directly from the issuer at a discount. That's the difference.
Right. Yeah. What's the best study method? Well, I'm thinking, Luis, you must have checked in late. Because I think we've gone over 3 or 4 times what we think the best study method is.
Study blocks.
Read the book cover to cover. Watch the 66 podcast that Brian and I did first. Yep. I think it's 4 or 5 episodes to get the lay of the land, do some reconnaissance, kind of see what it looks like in total. Then jump in with your study blocks and do unit 1. Do the quiz, 25, 30 questions, 70%. Move on to unit 2. And then, repeat, rinse, and repeat. Yeah, it looks like we're coming to the end of our time together. I'm just seeing, Brian, how many more we got.
Okay.
Is there an easy way to master formulas? Well, 66, I had a good debrief. Maybe I'll share it next to remind me. But I think people overestimate how many formulas you're going to be asked about. There's not a lot, current yield, working capital. But I don't have an easy way to master them. I think it's mainly recognition, input, and output. We're doing analytical methods tomorrow. We'll be talking about some of those formulas. You measured me yesterday. Thanks again for that. I failed the 66 study again. Thanks to you both. Julian, I don't know what that is. 63, 65, test is material. Efficient market hypothesis means all the information to be known about a stock is known, and therefore you can't beat the market. A hypothesis is not truth. It just informs us. There's 3 theories, 3 versions of this. There's the weak form where technical analysis is of no value. By the way, every time we move up on the efficient market hypothesis, technical analysis didn't work in the weak form, and it doesn't work in the semi-strong form. It's not going to work under any of the hypotheses. So make sure you're reading carefully. Sometimes people miss practice questions. They're not reading the question properly. Semi-strong says, yes, the market can be beat with material non-public information. And strong form says nothing beats the market. Now, what does that now mean in terms of the test question? You need to recognize those versions, but it means that the strongest form is known as the random walk. The professor who came up with this. And it means what we should do is just get an index fund and accept a market-based return. The way I think of it, Wendy, is we don't believe in a thing called alpha. If you believe in the efficient market hypothesis, you don't believe there's excess returns. And so why spend the time and energy and resources chasing some mythical thing called alpha? Now, there are many people, Wendy, in the industry who would assure you that they can get alpha, excess returns. All right, let's see, past 65. Looks like, Brian, we've got some more stuff going on. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get the Wheel of Fortune, and we'll do the Wheel of Fortune. We'll end, and I'll stick around a couple more minutes and finish up whatever's left in our chat. And let me go get our Wheel of Fortune. Where is our wheel? Giveaway. There we go. And I'm going to choose our live stream. And tonight's word, wait till I put it in there because you have to spell it exactly the way you're going to see it on your screen here in just a moment. So let's see, share screen. What happened? Share screen. There we go. Boom. And tonight, it is Lagavulin is the word to win the coaching call. Lagavulin. That is a single malt Scotch from Isla. And then we'll see who our winner is. And then I will go back and finish up whatever else we have left in the chat. All right. Hey, Brian, you won't believe who you missed us last week. And guess who won? You won't believe.
No, don't tell me. No, you can't tell me he won again.
Marcel?
Oh, come on. No way.
I'm sure that people think I'm fixing the coaching call draw. Like, winner. We got some entries here. So I got 10. Are we ready to spin the Wheel of Fortune? All right. Looks like that's it. Let's spin the wheel. Oh, there's Marcel again.
No.
Now, he went by last time, Brian, and then he showed back up again. Noah, all right. So, Noah, go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. Go to the coaching call tab, and you can register for your coaching call, and then it'll send you a link, and then I'll show up, and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. You did not win a tutoring session at a date and time of your choice, right? Yeah. If you want to know what the coaching calls look like, you can go to my YouTube channel. There's a whole playlist of coaching call replays. I just put up one today, and it's the coaching call that Charlene won, and she wanted to talk about spreads, and that's what we did. So you can check out and see what that looks like. All right, let's get rid of that. Boom. Brian and I say at the end of all of our things, remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. And Brian, you say?
You have to learn to keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
All right, everybody. Well, that officially ends our time together. Remember, we're here every Tuesday. And make sure you stay connected. You're not alone. So make sure you stay connected and join us on Tuesdays or join us in the jam session. Join us for whatever, you can join us for. And we'll be here. Now, I'm going to continue on, Brian, and I'm going to answer whatever remaining questions we have in the chat before we call it a day. So I will check with you, Brian, next. When you come back to Vegas?
August 14th.
Okay, you don't have to put your personal business on blast, but I do want to come see you out there in Vegas at some point. So, all right, let me get rid of this. Okay, and now let me go back, and I will pick up the remaining chats, and let's see what we got left in chat here. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, we did that already. I think we talked to Javier already. I think this is our last one that somebody had put in. Flashcards. Well, I think flashcards are great. I would believe, I'm an OG. I don't believe in Quizlet. I don't like having other people's flashcards. I like to make my own. Part of the, the process is making your own flashcards. Yeah, there you go. I like that. You're welcome. Leander, if you don't want to buy all of Brian's content, $100, he does sell the practice test as a PDF for about $20 with the Guru discount code. So you can go to testgeekexamprep.com and you can buy the PDF of his practice test. Now, all you're getting is the practice test and the answer key and rationale. If you do that, Leandra, I would put it aside and take it 2-3 days from your exam to kind of get that last mark. Now, if you don't want to pay the $20, you can also watch me do that exam and go hit pause and play, and you can watch me do it with a student. I think tomorrow there's an SIE practice test, and I think it's the Test Geek one. The person gave me permission to put it on the channel, and it will be up Thursday. So you can see a new one, and I believe it was Test Geek we did together on that one. Economic factors on 66. Well, it's not a big deal on the 66 as it is the 65, but a general understanding of the business cycle, definition of a recession, 2 calendar quarters of declining GDP, an inverted yield curve where short-term rates are higher, rates on short-term bonds are higher than long-term bonds. I would know the credit spread, the difference between high credit quality bonds pay and low credit quality pay. In terms of business information, source of financial information, that's not business, financial. I would know, again, 10Qs are quarterly reports, 10K is an annual report, 8K is a current event. I would know 13Fs are what people with $100 million have to file form quarterly on their holdings. So insurance products lightly tested, but I would know the difference between, term and variable. Every once in a while, you get a question about what's the max illustration you can sew in universal life or something like that. But if you tell me you missed the mark on 66 because of insurance, I'm going to say, you had other problems. It's past the 65. All right. Woo! We ask not for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. Yeah, you didn't win again tonight, Marcel. Thank God. If you were going to think I got the fixes in for you, if you would have won again. So there you go. I will certainly tell Mom hello. And as I said, we know that we have at some point a rendezvous. And I was thinking of you because Tommy's is my favorite place in San Francisco for tequila. And there's a legendary tequila guy named Julio. And Julio is in New Orleans. And I guess they're having some 50-year anniversary party for Patron. And I think, man, that would have been great to go. So, I'm going to take Brian out to your neck of the woods, or we're going to certainly get you back to Vegas and have a nice steak dinner and some nice adult beverages. Wendy asked Monica, what did you see most on the exam? Just want to say thank you. Passed the SIE 66, and now you have a sponsor for 7. I love it. And Stephanie, I bet that sponsor said, what? Stephanie, you're telling me that on your own, you went and got your SIE and your 66? You sound like a human capital we want around here. We already know that we don't have to take a chance on your FIR2 testing victories. So I love stories like that, Stephanie. Kudos to you for putting that sweat equity investment in and showing up where they're saying, wow, okay, this is somebody who really wants to be in our business. I love that. For SI underwriting, the difference between negotiated and competitive. I think, Samantha, it's kind of like a mortgage, right? I can get a mortgage if I want a bank to lend me some money to buy a house. I could go into my bank where I have an existing relationship, and I have a checking account there, and I have a car loan, and I have things like that. And I say, I need a mortgage. And we sit down and we negotiate, and they say, Dean, here's what we can offer you. And they say, Dean, are you going to go check with anybody else? I go, no. I just negotiate with you. I know you're going to do a good job. And if I find out you didn't, you're going to lose, this entire relationship. So in a negotiated transaction, we're not going to, have a beauty contest or a bake-off. For example, Morgan Stanley is the investment banker for all of the Elon Musk's, companies, whether it's XI, whether it's Tesla, whether it's SpaceX. And so those are all done on a negotiated basis. So, Elon calls Morgan Stanley and says, hey, I need $5 billion, or in this case, let's say $10 billion. There were $10 billion worth of bonds issued to buy out Twitter. And that was a negotiated transaction. Morgan Stanley on a negotiated basis. Now, competitive would be, Samantha, where I call in an underwriter and I say, listen, don't kid yourself. You see those other guys out there in the lobby? I'm having a beauty contest or a bake-off, and whoever can provide me the financing at the lowest cost is the winner. In the stock, if they can get me 30 and somebody says 20, I'm going with 30. Now, in the test, competitive, right, with the auction would be an auction, not negotiated. We don't have an auction. In my mortgage example, I would say to my bank, they say, well, Dean, you're going to go check other people? I go, absolutely. And whoever gives me the best deal, that's who gets my mortgage. So that would be competitive. Now, an auction would be competitive. The auction isn't negotiated. Auction would be competitive. Those are synonymous, right? An auction is whoever gives us the best deal wins the auction. The key takeaway on SIE is negotiated. The issuer selects the underwriter. Competitive, it's whoever provides the best financing. Woohoo! Oh my goodness, look at all those testing victories. My goodness. We usually say the hat trick, and the hat trick is 3. So we'll have to come up, Leah, for a different name. What is that? The quadrophenia, the quadfrecta, right? Kudos. Boom. Registration scenarios. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by registration scenarios. Again, Monica, this isn't our 66 class like with Kara, where we spent the entire morning going over how do you register a security? If not, why not? Scenarios. How do you register a broker dealer? If not, why not? How do you register an agent of a broker dealer? If not, why not? How do you register an investment advisory firm? If not, why not? How do you register an investment advisor representative? If not, why not? That is way, way more complicated than a Tuesday night live stream to answer that question. You got to put in the work and lay some base to be able to ask me a more particular question like, Dean, how come agents don't have to be registered in a particular state? I say, Monica, because they have no office and they have no retail client. Or you say, Dean, how come an investment advisory firm doesn't have to register in a state? I say, well, one of two things. Either they're a federally covered advisor and they're not registering in any state, Monica, or they're a state covered investment advisor, but they don't have an office in that other state and they don't have more than 5 retail clients. So that's just a huge kind of conversation. So come back next Tuesday with more particular questions, and I'd be more than happy to answer the particular scenario you would like to discuss. Now, on economic factors, there's a big difference between whether you're taking a 65 or a 66. If you're taking a 65, it's going to be a much bigger deal. You're going to have to know about fiscal policy, monetary policy, interest rates, GDP, all that kind of stuff. And if you're taking a 66, I answered it earlier about what you need to be aware of: the credit spread, the yield curve, defensive stocks, those kind of things. Brian says, focus on what you do know, not what you don't. And I'm sure on that as well. Oh, I'm sorry, Monica. I apologize. My apologies. So you're not asking me a question. I apologize, Monica. You are being a great test taker and getting great karma. It dawns on me, Monica, you're now responding to the question you got asked. So my apologies. Thank you so much for answering that test taker's question. So, man, maybe I should not have as much Lagavulin as I've had. There you go. Do I think you're ready if you got a 68? I do. 269s, yeah. I think I would be, if I were a betting person, Zach, I'd say you're going to make your mark. Joe, Brian, and Dean, it looks like we're coming to the end here. No worries, Javier. You're not understanding how an option can expire. Well, Josh, let me give you an example of an option contract. I'm out here off grid, and there's a guy who has 80 acres. I'm off grid, but I mean, at least I'm close to a paved road. This guy's in the middle of nowhere. But what a beautiful piece of property. It's got a generator already. It's got septic. It's got, solar. And the guy wants $200,000, which I think is a screaming deal. And, but I don't want to part with the $200,000 now. So I say to him, hey, listen, what I'd like to do is get an option contract to buy your property for $200,000. I'll give you $20,000 to allow me to buy this property for the next 18 months for $200,000. That's a call contract, right? I have the opportunity to call it away for $200,000. And now, I was thinking if I do this, I think, I got people in California that would freak if I told them I could get them 80 acres off grid. And I call my buddy in California. All he does, Josh, is bitch about California. And I tell him all the time, well, then just move. I'm tired of you bitching about California. If you don't like it anymore, like me, get up and move. Anyways, I call him and I say, hey, John, I found 80 acres that you can get for $300,000. Ooh. I send him the pictures. He says, Dean, I'll take it. So, Josh, now what I'm going to do is exercise my call contract. I'm going to buy the property for $200,000. I paid $20,000. I sell it to my cousin for $3,000. I make $80,000. Now, as I mentioned, Josh, the reason I haven't done that, and people keep giving me grief, well, Dean, you have $200,000. Why don't you buy it? I go, well, I'm not in the acquisition stage of my life. And, I'd be afraid somebody's out there stealing that generator and messing with the solar. Could be a problem, is a problem, never be a problem if I don't buy it. Now, let's say that, we hit a recession or something. And now 80 acres next door to him is going for $150,000. Remember, I said I could buy it for 18 months for $200,000. So how could it expire? If the property's worth $150,000, I'm not going to exercise my contract to buy a $200,000 property worth $150,000. It has no intrinsic value and it would expire worthless. Now, Josh, the bigger question on the test is to know that when I give you time clock questions about an option, a great memory aid device is T. I'm not asking, Josh, what can happen to an investor in an option contract. I could make money, lose money, break even. I'm not asking. I'm asking what can happen to an option contract. T. The option contract can be traded. So you can trade the option. If you did an opening purchase, you can do a closing sale. If you did an opening sale, you can do a closing purchase. So you can trade the option. The option contract can get exercised. Now, I'm under no obligation on their test to tell you whether or not an option contract got exercised. If at expiration the contract has intrinsic value, the contract will be exercised. Apple's at $200 a share, and I buy a $200 call, and Apple's at $240. I'm going to exercise. The last thing, and your point, that can happen to an option contract is it can expire. And if at expiration the contract has no intrinsic value, the contract will expire worthless. In other words, if Apple's 190, the 200 call is going to expire worthless. Be careful. Is that good news or bad news? That depends. If you bought the 200 call, you'd lost your premium. If you sold the 200 call, you keep it. All right. Woo, Peter. If you joined us late, Peter, tonight, we do two things. We ring the bell in honor of victorious test takers, and we also do a victory post. The gift or gratuity rule does not apply to, gurus. And so this was a gift from one of my successful test takers, and that is a single malt scotch called Lagavulin, a very popular scotch in the securities industry. Friday, you should be okay. Only score 63 so far. Well, as I said, Emma, if you're going Friday, you got to be confident in the execution of your study plan. You got to be confident in yourself. And on Friday, you got to be confident in your answers. I don't think there's any reason to get wobbly. Confidence is worth 10 points. So I think you're going to be able to close the gap. You got Wednesday, you got Thursday. Keep working, my friend. Keep working. Yeah, Yasha, that's tonight, Lagavulin. Oh, you missed it. I don't know if you're putting that in the chat to win the coaching call. That drawing has come and gone. We do that at 6:00. I apologize. It looks like a lot of people are putting Lagavulin into the Wheel of Fortune. Buy shares, which has an alpha of 2. Well, millionaires in training. What are you doing here again? There's no question where we tell you what the alpha on a stock is. Alpha is the excess return. So alpha would be based on beta. The market's expected to return 4%. So a beta of 1 would mean you expect 4%. If it's a beta of 2, you would expect 8%. Bets of ABC is 0.5. T-bills, what's the actual rate? Who cares? I don't know why you keep coming to my channel. You need to stay in your own lane, my friend, and to use your YouTube channel and promote your channel. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about, and it's not helpful to any student taking the 65, which is proof that you don't even know what's on the exam and is tested. So please don't make me ban you. You are not welcome to this YouTube live stream on any Tuesday. Start your own. You can find it either, Leandra, on the channel in the playlist for practice tests if you don't want to pay for it, or you can go to testgeekexamprep.com and find it there as a $20 PDF. Again, I don't know why you're showing up. Nobody's going to see you. Boom. I just am going to Millionaire in Training. Just so you know, you are now banned and your comments are deleted. So there's no sense in you ever coming back here again. Hard to believe these people are something else. Let's see. Boom. Difficulty Kaplan. We talked about that already. Taking the 7. We're just finishing up here. Just past the SIE. Well, again, Gabriel, I think you're coming late. My channel is organized in playlists. You go to the Series 7 playlist. There's a playlist called Playlist 1 of 9. It says start here. And so I don't know how it could be any more clear. Start here, right? So it's a podcast series and gives you the reconnaissance of the entire test, gets you see what the terrain is like. And that's where you should start. And then there's playlist 2. It says playlist 1 of 9, playlist 2 of 9, but it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. Devon, you just got to stick the landing. I wish you were testing sooner rather than later with those kind of scores. So just rinse and repeat. I've said we don't want to run out of fuel before you stick the landing. You're circling the airport and you're in good shape. We would hope air traffic control would say, Devin, come on down, man. Time to land the plane. On Friday, what should you focus on? You shouldn't try to learn new things, Fernando. You should maybe do one more practice test 2 days before, and then the morning of, fold up shop on the afternoon before your test, and make sure you get a good night's rest. Okay, it looks like that is everything. Question, make sure I'm getting the most efficient study method. Read first. Yes, you should read. I mean, I told you, I'm an OG. You should read the book. People ask me all the time, should I read the book? I go, yes, you should read the book. I say, it doesn't matter how many thousands of times you ask me, you should read the book. A lot of times when people are watching the replay, Luis, they'll say, what book? I said, well, whatever book came with your course. You shouldn't buy any course that doesn't come with a book. So that would be a minimum thing. If you're buying a test prep vendor's package, does it come with a book and does it come with a QBank? Those are 2 things you got to have. You are welcome, Sarah. You are welcome. Boy, look at that smile. That is a spirit-filled smile. Sarah, I'd be worried having an avatar like that because, if you have a bad day, people are going to say, well, wait a minute, you can't have a bad day. No worries. Any tips? Well, Omar, I don't know what your first attempt. Did you feel like you were passing or not? Did you change answers? I would tell you the best thing to do is make sure that you have overlearned it. In other words, you're ready for any kind of a draw and you found those additional points for Friday. There you go. Read cover to cover any notes while reading. No. Luis, what I want you to do, again, I know some people are incredulous like this. The guy told me, Luis, he goes, well, how long is it going to take me to read the book? Well, I go, I don't know. So read for an hour, see how many pages you read. Then take the page count in the book and divide by your read rate, and I will tell you how many hours you need to develop on that. Now, we're not trying to learn while reading. We're just trying to get the lay of the land, so to speak. So, no, I don't want you taking notes. I don't want you highlighting. I had a guy, Luis, and he highlighted the entire book. I said, well, how do you even know what's important? So now you got to go read it again and highlight it. So ideally, I would like you to think about maybe doing a second reading, and that would be the time to highlight and take notes. So I'm not a big fan of taking notes. I'm a big fan of trying to get through the book cover to cover and as close to one setting as possible. Now, I realize that may not be possible, but that's the ideal kind of situation. How many practice banks about taking practice quizzes? Well, it depends on your vendor how many potential questions there are. And that's one of the reasons I like Kaplan. Kaplan has the most practice questions of any other vendor. And so it's unlikely that you're going to, in the Series 7, for example, exhaust 3,600 practice questions. But there is a direct correlation between how many practice questions people have done and passing. Now, what I mean by that, Luis, I'm not your corporate trainer. But if I were your corporate trainer, I would have a backstage password, whether it's STC or Kaplan or Past Perfect or Notman, where I can enter your dashboard and see what you've been doing. And Luis, if you missed your mark, guess what Dean, the corporate trainer, is going to do immediately? I'm going to go backstage and see what your QBank usage rate was. And there's a direct correlation between low QBank usage rate and not passing, and high QBank rate usage and passing. So I would say to you, Lise, how many practice questions are you going to commit to in your study blocks? I don't really care as your corporate trainer. You say, Dean, I'm doing 90-minute study blocks or 60-minute study blocks. I'm going to get to 25 questions. And then what I'm going to hold you accountable for is that. And I'm going to call you in and say, Louise, now a lot of us have to be our own accountability partner. Maybe you're doing this on your own and you don't have a corporate trainer to kind of, prod you, give you some motivation, right? But, I say, hey, maybe you missed your mark. And I bring up that. I say, hey, Luis, you told me you were going to do 25 practice questions a unit and do quizzes. And I'm looking here and you didn't do that. As you recall, last week, you told me it was 7 days out. You told me you were going to do 3 practice tests, remediate, and you were going to tell me your scores, and you didn't do that. So, you just immediately focused on activity and what activities you can maintain. There you go. Well, Sarah, sorry, we don't give any points, right? You got to earn them. But I guess I would tell you the good news is that's not knowledge deficit. Almost every firm will send you down again for any of the exams if you get a high 60. If you just barely missed the mark, your firm knows you were dedicated, you were disciplined, you were organized. There's some other variable, changing answers, face a death draw, emergency, whatever. So most firms, and on the second attempt, most people, those scores do indeed pass. So I would expect you're going to make your mark. Did the worst in law section. Okay, well, laws and registrations, that's primarily disclosures and unethical business practices. Purchase a Test Geek. There you go. Test Geek, I think, is a great paid supplement, Josh. Brian is very good at putting this in plain English. So I don't know if I'd recommend anything else. My YouTube channel, certainly. Maybe a Kaplan QBank if you don't already have. Sure, Chris. We answer questions about anything. So just fire away. What's your question? Thank you. While I read practice, can I move on to the next? While I read, how many practice questions until I can move on to the next chapter? I would want you to be in the mid 70s. So you do unit 1, you do a practice quiz of 25 questions, you get 73, 4, 5, 6, move on. And then remember, unit 2, you're going to do a combined version of both those. All right, looks like I actually got through everybody. Yeah, Brian, I think does a great job. We had that millionaire training guy who claims he's a trainer, and he comes on the channel, Josh, to promote his channel on my channel. And last time he showed up, he said, well, you promote Brian. I go, I've known Brian for 30 years and we're collaborators. And who are you? Who are you? So, all right. It looks like we have got through everybody's questions. We're here every Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. Remember, inch by inch, your exams are a cinch, yard by yard, your exams are hard. Are there any trends? No, the draws you get, Chris, are completely random. So I joke about dream draws and face of death draws. That's just something I make up because it's random what kind of draw you're going to get. As I said earlier in our time together on 6, pay attention to retail communication, customer accounts. Those are easy kind of points to get. I would pay attention to variable annuities, but there's a lot of overlap on the SIE and the Series 6. All right, everybody. I'll see you next Tuesday if I don't see you sooner. Bye-bye.